This is the corrections for the 2018 interpretations of accounts. The question we're looking at is Born to Run. We're just looking at the part A, so the question 5, part A, the ratios. So again, in trading profit and loss balance sheet, first thing we're asked here to do is find cash purchases if the period of credit received from the trade creditors is 2.5 months. So I must find cash purchases. I'm given no information in the question regarding purchases at all. But I can work it out just by kind of working back. But the only way I'll find cash purchases is if I either find total purchases and find credit purchases, and then I'm going to have to obviously work back to find cash purchases. So we're told that we have a period of credit received from the creditors, and it's 2.5 months. That's what we're given. Therefore, you need to know the formula to work that out. Put the answer equal to 2.5. So the formula here is going to be creditors over credit purchases multiplied by 365 or 12, depending on whether it's days or months, over 1. 80,000 is my trade creditors. Again, I got that from my balance sheet. My credit purchases is unknown. I'm multiplying by 12 because my answer is in months, 2.5. So if I work that in, I get an answer of 384,000 for my 384,000 for my credit purchases. So that's my missing figure. I've worked that one out here to be 384,000. Now I have my credit purchases. I need to find my cash purchases because that's what we're looking for. So they haven't given us our total purchases here. So how do I work that out? Well, I have sales, opening stock, closing stock, and cost of goods sold. So I can work back to find purchases. This is what a table would look like, just focused on the beginning of a trading profit and loss. So this is just a repeat of the table. You don't obviously have to do this. Sales, there's cost of sales, opening stock, we don't know purchases, it wasn't given here. Closing stock, but we know that this cost of goods sold is opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock. So I know the cost of goods is opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock. If I plug those figures in, it's 560,000 is my cost of sales. Opening stock is 60,000, so it's equal to 60,000 plus X, which is purchases, minus my closing stock. So I work out my purchases to be 590,000. That's my total purchases. My total purchases is 590,000. It's also equal to cash plus credit purchases. I don't know my cash, it's what I'm looking for, but I do know my credit purchases 384,000 because we worked that out from the credit received from creditors formula and got our answer here. Therefore, my total purchases minus my credit purchases of 384,000 is equal to my cash purchases 206,000. Again, I'm doing this quite fast because I'm under the assumption that you've done this out already and that you could follow it from the last video. This is not a teaching video. The first video I sent you was to go through the instructions. This is the exact same as our first video, except that one was cash sales instead of cash purchases, but everything was the same except it was just a different formula. It was debtors over credit sales, but similar concept. We should be able to kind of apply the two. Dividend yield is my next one. Again, that was my the same that I had from the last question as well. So the formula for dividend yield is DPS. It's dividend per share over share price in cent multiplied by 100 over 1 is percent. I can't work this out because I don't know my dividend per share, so I need to find that. That has its own formula. The formula for that is the total dividend minus the preference dividend over number of ordinary shares multiplied by 100 over 1 is equal to cent. So we know our total dividend. I'm going to show you that there in a second. We also know the number of ordinary shares. We need to work out preference dividend. So to find this guy here, to find our dividends per share, we need all three bits of information. I have this. My total dividend is given here and my dividends paid. I have number of ordinary shares. Number of ordinary shares is down here, given in the question. I don't have my preference dividend. How do I work it out? Well, I know that my preference shares are 200,000 and I know they get an 8% return. If I multiply those out, I find my preference dividend. So preference dividend is 200,000 multiplied by 8%, which they gave, is 16,000. So I know 16,000. I know my total dividend because it's the dividends here, 45. And I know my number of ordinary shares because I had that down here. Number of ordinary shares is 350,000. So if I plug all those in, I'm able to work out, and it's 8.29. So 45, 16, 350. I have it down here, 8.29 cents. So that's my dividends per share, my DPS. We can go back to the formula we had at the start. Dividend per share over share price multiplied by 100 over 1. Share price is always given. That bottom one is always given. It's down here. It's in €1.35. But if I work it out in cents, it's obviously 135. Again, that's my formula. My dividend per share I just worked out. So putting those two in, 8.29 divided by 135 cents multiplied by 100 over 1 is my final answer for dividend yield, 6.14. My third one here is my price earnings ratio. The formula for this here I have is share price in cents divided by earnings per share is equal to years. So my share price again is 135 cents. I saw that in the last one, but I don't have my earnings per share. So I need to work that out again. How do I work out my earnings per share? Well, I have my formula here. So my formula for earnings per share is net profit minus preference dividend over number of ordinary shares. Net profit's given up here in the trading profit and loss, 82,000 minus preference dividend. I just worked out my preference dividend up here to be 16,000. Let's put that back in black. To be 16,000 up here. So my last one that I need to have for this formula is my number of ordinary shares. My number of ordinary shares is given again at 350,000. So I can work out my earnings per share. And my earnings per share here, just plugging in net profit minus preference dividend over ordinary shares multiplied by 100 over 1 is 18.86 cents. Earnings per share 18.86 cents. Share price in cents is 135. So I can go back, put those in, and I get my answer in years. I have it here. Share price divided by earnings per share. So I'm just going to widen that out just to kind of fix it up a small bit. Share price, earnings per share, 135 divided by 18.86 is equal to 7.16. So 7.16 here is my answer. 135 cents because that's the share price. My earnings per share is given here in the last one we worked it out, 8.86. Answer 7.16. Moving on to the fourth one, return on capital employed. The last two will be nice and quick. My formula for this one here is net profit before interest over capital employed multiplied by 100 divided by 1. My net profit is 82,000. Before interest, that means that I go back before the interest was taken away. So 18,000. Before the interest was taken away, my net profit was 82 plus 18. So 82 plus 18 here divided by my capital employed. My capital employed I can find down here. At the bottom it's given here as 930,000. That's my capital employed, those two balancing figures in the balance sheet. So if I plug all that in, 82,000 my net profit plus 18,000, the interest, add those two together before you go multiplying anything, divided by 930,000 because that's my capital employed, answer 10.75%. My formula for the last one, my interest cover, my formula for this one is net profit before interest divided by interest equals times. We hadn't seen this one before, but it's nice and easy to calculate. Net profit, again, 82,000. Before interest, meaning I'm adding back that 18,000 that I took away to get my net profit after interest. So my net profit before interest, again, is 82 plus 18,000. And my last one, part of the formula, again, is I divided by interest. Interest, again, is 18,000. The answer is in times, 5.56. Very important that all those answers have the correct unit shown, years, percent, times, and so forth.